Hey guys, this is Raymond, and it's been a while since I had a new video. I'm testing out my setup. This is actually the setup I use when I teach my online classes. And I figured if it's good enough for my online class, it's good enough for my YouTube videos. And I'm also testing some new audio equipment, so I hope it sounds nice, right? So, as you probably know from the title of the video, what we're going to talk about is why I'm not hardcore and that's okay, right? So what brought about this, you know, meditation, this idea? This is a weird realization as a martial artist, in the martial arts, being hardcore is something that we really value for some reason. And I've been there. I've been the young martial artist, and when we were young, we wanted to train hard, right? And we wanted to get, improve because in our minds, the more hardcore you are, the better, the more realistic things are, the better you become as a martial artist. And I think there's some truth to that. There is some truth to that, right? We can't have kid gloves all the time when we're training, and the higher the intensity, the better. But I realize that I'm not there anymore in my martial arts journey. Like at this point in my life, I'm more about teaching people. And then I suddenly think, okay, so why don't I want to teach this guy? If you're all about teaching people, why don't you want to teach this guy? Because by circumstance and by chance, I ended up teaching young people. Like I'm doing basically youth martial arts, right? And again, by happenstance and by whatever providence, whatever, I ended up teaching primarily girls, right? I would say that right now, like 90% of my students are women or girls actually, like middle school and high school kids. And what I realized is I like training with these people, and I like training them not because I find the hardcore guys too intense, right? What I realized is, in this world, right, who would benefit the most from training Filipino martial arts, right? Like who will you know get the most out of it? And when you think about it, when you think about self-defense, right? What we want is the for the powerless to have the power to help themselves, right? And that seems to be what martial arts is all about, so that the smaller guy can take care of himself. He's not going to be overwhelmed by the bigger guy, the stronger guy, or that if you have strength, you use it properly. I distinctly remember I was training one day, right? And this guy approached me, and he was a foreigner and he wanted to train with me, right? He saw, hey, you're doing Filipino martial arts, it looks great, I want to do it too, right? It turns out he's already had some experience with Filipino martial arts, so I'm like, oh, okay, what do you want to learn? And then I tell him and I give him the background of my style, right? Which is it's predominantly a stick style, right? We do train sword, we do train knives, but the root of it, the main practice or the foundation is in stick fighting. And he was like, no, no, man, I have experience already, and he's more about knife training. And he was like, yeah, I want intense training. I want it, really hard. Let's go. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to teach this guy the knife curriculum. Why not? He already has experience. And then we go through the knife curriculum, and what I've noticed is he probably knows. The amount of time he spent with his other training group was enough time for him to know a significant amount of knife techniques, right? So he knows all about it, right? It's not a new thing for him. So at the end of it, I realized like I'm not. I don't have anything to teach this guy, right? And I think the feeling was mutual. But for whatever reason, right, my teaching style was not what this guy was looking for. And then he would show me videos like, oh, right, back home I used to do karate, and then he would show videos of him doing karate back home. And it's not, I don't think it's traditional karate by any stretch. But again, the main theme there was this guy was training hardcore. Like they were training intensely. Then he showed videos of him training with his FMA group, and you know his FMA group. They were training him really intensely. They were like doing all knife training and all of that. I'm like, okay, cool, cool. So you know when I'm thinking about it, right? I could spend my time training guys like this foreigner that I talked about who want intense, hardcore training. And if I probably trained that kind of person, if I had a martial arts group that was filled with just the hardcore training guys, yeah, I would probably be more hardcore myself. Like, I'd probably be more muscular, I'd probably be more athletic. Because just the fact that you're training with them or you're training them, it kind of forces you in that direction, right? But these guys don't need me. They have a lot of people who are already catering to them. There's like, you know, the paramilitary types that are there, you know the types. I kind of rag on them a lot on my videos, but you know, if it's an FMA group that trains with military type equipment, yeah, those are the guys. Yeah, and that's their market. Those intense hardcore guys, you know, stick together. That's what you want to do. What I want to train, and what I ended up training, is I'm training young people, young women especially, to defend themselves. And I think this is as as a martial artist and as a teacher, it's really hard to do that, right? Why? Look, I am as of this video, I'm something like 300 pounds, right? I'm a 300-pound guy, and I have to teach these young 100-pound or less. I've had students who are less than 100 pounds. You know, these really small people, and I have to make them believe that what I'm teaching them will work for them, right? And this is where I realized, like, okay, as I've trained these young people, right, I have actually improved my technique. Why? Look, when I was doing hardcore stuff, when I was doing like really intense stuff, and you know I'm fighting all the time, there is a natural tendency for me to work. Well, any human being will work with their strengths, right? And being a big guy, being a strong guy, that's my strength. Strength is my strength. I'm stronger than most of the guys I fight, right? I'm probably bigger. I just have the mass to move them around if it turns into a wrestling match. I have the arm length, the reach, um, just to outreach a lot of the people I encounter, right? If I'm doing a weapons fight. Um, but as I train these younger people, these smaller people, I had to refine my technique to the level where these 100-pound young girls can consistently apply the technique against someone bigger and heavier. So of course, in my classes, of course they will train with each other, right? They'll be training partners, but I will also be there, right? So anytime I teach them any kind of technique, right, I will tell them like, okay, if you're fighting someone like me, right, somebody big, try to apply the technique as well as you can. And sometimes, and I don't know if any of you guys have ever encountered this, that you would have head scratching moments where you don't know why the technique is not working for this person, right, that you're training. I've had a couple of that before, as I train these young people. And it made me like go deep, like what is happening here? Why isn't the technique working for her? And I refuse to believe that it's just the lack of strength. That's probably the last possible answer. But I believe that if you can move your arms, there's a reasonable amount of pressure that you can put against another human body. So that's the thing. And then because of that, I've gone deep into my training. And, my techniques, I think, have become more efficient because of that. And also my communication skills have become better, right? And this is something that I believe will really help me in the long run as I become older. Now, as I said, I'm 300 pounds. I'm not stopping here. I'm trying to lose weight. I'm trying to get healthier. So, of course, even when you get older, you want to be as fit as possible. But, as anyone who's gotten has gotten on in life, you get to realize that the physical ability that you have will have its limits. You want to stretch it out for as long as possible, but that there is going to be a limit to it eventually, right? And I think that's what's happening. That's why, as I mentioned, as the title says, I'm not hardcore, and that's okay, because I think being hardcore is leading me into a different path in martial arts. It's making me reach out to a different set of people who are very different from me personally. Um, and it's leading my martial arts in a direction that's very interesting, very efficient, very efficient techniques, where you are less dependent on your strength, right? Which is weird for a guy like me who's, always been, pretty strong. All right. So I hope this is helpful for some of you guys in your martial arts journey. Not everyone is in the same spot. If you're still in that spot where you want to train hardcore, and you just want to go, hammers and tongs against other people out there, go ahead. You're in that part of the journey, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there is some kind of benefit to that. Later on, your martial arts might take you in a different direction. It might make you go even harder core. I don't know. It might make you go a little bit softer, like myself and like some of the other people I know. And one of the things that's cool about not being hardcore, I know this, is that being hardcore becomes kind of a cage for some people. These are people who kind of want to prove how much of a badass they are, how much better of a martial artist they are compared to other people. And that's very tiring, and it kind of traps you also, because you're always proving yourself somehow, right? Like being hardcore can be like an external thing, for some people. Some people are perfectly fine with it. So that's what I'm also thinking. As time goes on, it becomes less of a trap for you. You become free, and then you become free to explore stuff, right? So a lot of you guys who know me, and you can look through my videos, you can see I enjoy lightsaber things. Things connected with the lightsaber. I do twirling, lightsaber choreography, and some guys who think of themselves as too hardcore, they don't want to get involved with that. Like, nah, I don't want to get into the geek stuff because that's going to affect how hardcore I look to my people, right? And I kind of get it. For some of them, they're like instructors, and they're instructors in organizations that are hardcore. So if you're a hardcore teacher and then you're spending your weekends wearing costumes and waving about glowy plastic sticks, it might affect your hardcoreness. But as I mentioned, I'm not hardcore, and that's okay. I can get into it. And one of the things and again, that brought my martial arts into a totally different direction. It really helped me with how to present my martial arts, right? Because as martial artists, we're really stuck with realism, hardcore, right? Everything has to be real. But here's the funny thing, right? And a lot of you guys probably know this. Anyone who's done a demo, real techniques that really work can kind of look fake to the audience, right? While the opposite thing is true. A fake technique, or at least a technique that is a little bit showier than normal, or not the exact same technique you would use in a life and death situation, it would look more realistic to the audience, right? So that's another thing. That's another expansion in the martial arts for me. Now I'm taking into account the viewer, right? So again, if you're still in that stage when you're developing your martial arts, you can be as very, very focused on yourself as you can. But again, I'm in that stage where I'm teaching people, I'm presenting the martial arts, I'm trying to be an ambassador for the martial arts. So you have to take that into account. And if I didn't join these lightsaber groups, I probably would not have been exposed to the theatricality of it. Like, I thought I knew how to do a demo before, but after joining these guys, I realized that there's a lot of things I don't know, right? There's a lot of things I can't do. And like when I do a demo, and a lot of you guys would notice this, most martial artists who do a demo, we only have like one or two modes, like super angry or nothing, right? Because that's kind of how we're trained. A lot of us are trained to be calm, collected, poised when you're fighting. So you want to have that calm face, right? But if the audience sees that, all they see is a robot moving on stage, no emotions, right? So the other option that a lot of us do is we get angry, like yeah, yeah, when we do the demos, right? Um, and that's fine. That's fine. That entertains the crowd, right? But it limits the kind of things that you can present on stage, right? Um, so when you do that, like, now I'm thinking of how to present martial arts in a different way. Like, how do you show two guys who respect each other have a sword duel, right? How do you do that with expressions on the face and also with the body movement? That's something that I'm already thinking about. And again, I'm really happy I got exposed to that geek stuff that brought me to that direction, right? And that's a cool thing, right? So as I said, as the title says, I'm not hardcore and that's okay, right? Now I'm also getting into the historical stuff, which is very interesting for me. Like I'm kind of behind compared to everyone, compared to a lot of people who are doing a lot of studies in this field. But I'm really interested in like the traditions and the history behind it. I'm doing some research, and I've met some amazing people because of that. And we are exploring techniques and movements that have no real life application, to be honest, right? So, yeah, so these swords that we have, beautiful, beautiful swords, um, they do have their use in the modern context, but you know what? They're not that useful. Like, I mean, we're not wearing swords every day. Um, so it's a weird thing to start training with them if you're going to be honest with yourself, right? And if you get really good with sword fighting, with fencing, with one of these things, it's just fun stuff. To be honest, I'm not gonna use this in a hold up situation. I'm probably not gonna use this in a car assault or something, because that's not what my training is about, right? Sometimes what you're training for, or what you're learning, is how these were traditionally used, right? Like, were they used in duels? Were they used in raids? What were the techniques that they used? Did these old Filipino fighters or warriors, did they go up close and personal, like go into your personal space, or did they fence from a distance, right? You learn all of these things, and honestly, their practical use is very limited. But it's fun. It's fun stuff to learn. It's very geeky stuff. But again, I'm not hardcore, and that's okay, right? So I hope so there are people out there who saw this video, and you can now say to yourself, I'm not hardcore, and that's okay, right? Because martial arts sometimes is taking us into a weird space that we might not be ready for, and that's life. Life takes you in weird places. Okay, so that's enough for me. Have a good day, guys, and I hope you enjoyed this little weird thing that we